Wanted to thank you guys for coming out again for another one of our weekly press conferences. I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of issues that I think are at the forefront and some concerns that folks might have about where we're going and the direction we're headed in when it comes to the operating budget. So I'll talk about that first now that we've had a little bit of an opportunity to delve into some of the details a little bit more. On the face, we seemed very pleased with where the county executive has started us off in the framework that he's provided with our operating budget. Certainly spending more when it comes to education, one of the key tenets of our community. And so we believe that those investments are sound. We also believe that when we look at the continued resources that are being provided to departments like our libraries, recreation, parks, in terms of making sure that we can get some of those projects that are important to the community back on track. It is indicative, again, of where we see ourselves. Again, not fully spending without any sorts of reservations, because we understand that there are concerns and we want to be cautious. We've learned from our mistakes. But at the same time, we realize that pragmatic approaches to growth are direction that we need to head into to continue keeping Montgomery County at the forefront. And so there's been some conversation about MCPS and whether or not we would go above the county executive's recommendation. And so I'll take that question before it's given to me. Look, I've had an opportunity to talk to members within our school system, and I believe that the overall tenets of what they're trying to achieve in their budget make sense and address some of the priorities that we've heard here in the community. But at the same time, we have to understand that we have to do those within the fiscal constraints of our budget. At this point, we have a balanced budget that's been sent over by the county executive, and so without cutting from somewhere, it's very difficult to find additional funding. We will continue to work with the school system, and I look forward to the budget hearing or hearings that we may have within the Education Committee to talk about those issues and see how we can further, again, the vision of what the superintendent and board are trying to lay out in their budget within the fiscal constraints that we have here at the council. There's been talk about and questions about the energy tax, and that's certainly something that the community has brought forth. Our business community as an issue. And we certainly understand, again, that without the county executive putting that in the budget, it makes it very difficult for us to find. I know Councilmember Berliner has a resolution to reduce the energy tax, I think, by another 10%. So we'll be looking at that in the context of the entire budget and seeing whether or not that's something that's affordable. I do take very seriously the commitment that was made before I got onto the council about reducing that energy tax back to zero. But I have met with our chambers that do certainly understand also the challenges that we face in terms of trying to make sure that that budget remains balanced. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of the other things that happened last week. One of them is the Washington Metropolitan Regional Council Chairs meeting. And that meeting was actually attended by a number of regional leaders, including Phil Mendelson, chair of the D.C. Council, Calvin Ball, chair of the Howard County Council, Mel Franklin, chair of the Prince George's Council, and Jay Fizette from Arlington. And we had a great discussion about a number of issues that were extremely important to this region. A lot of them centered around economic development, but also around transportation. And it was a very interesting conversation because one of the things that we took from this discussion is that we need to start approaching our transportation from a more regional approach. Now, many will say, well, that's what you have the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments for. The reality is that the leadership on those boards oftentimes aren't the folks that are the presidents or leaders of those particular jurisdictions. And so it would behoove us to make sure that for each year and through multiple times throughout the year, that all of us are meeting and talking about what the priorities might be and make sure that those might be reflected in the budget and that there be coordination between the various jurisdictions. We hope to have even more attendance at our next upcoming Washington Metropolitan Regional Council Chairs meeting, which will probably be in another 2 months, right after we get done with with our budget. And so I think that, again, all of the folks that attended thought that this was a very valuable meeting. We didn't get a chance to talk about some of the other issues that are before us that will be on the forefront when it comes to our returning veterans and making sure we're addressing some of the concerns that they might see, our homeless population. Again, all things that are regional issues that we are challenged with, and making sure that we can do the best to put this Washington metropolitan region at the forefront. Last but not least, I did want to talk to you a little bit about our snow conference. This was a great opportunity for us to evaluate some of the challenges that we saw regarding our response to our snowstorms. And I think that we came out of it understanding that we still have a ways to go when it comes to making sure that our computer systems are functioning appropriately. I understand that there were some outages with our computer systems, and I know that our Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee is currently working with our staff member Costas Torregas and others in DTS from the county executive side to make sure that our system remains robust and that it gives the right amount of detail and support for our residents. That was a source of confusion and concern when it came to understanding when their roads were going to be plowed. And I think that that's really what our community is looking for, is some sort of assurance. We did talk about the likelihood of the county doing something when it came to our bus stops and sidewalks, and it was quite clear from the response from our Department of Transportation that with over 5,000 bus stops throughout the county alone, that it would be nearly impossible for us to clear out all of those bus stops within a reasonable amount of time before with a significant snowstorm. And so I think that what we need to do is convene a meeting that involves all of the stakeholders in this region, because this is not an issue that's unique just to Montgomery County. It's something that we also briefly mentioned at the Washington Metropolitan Regional Council Chairs meeting. And I think that it's actually something that needs to be taken up by our Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. And so I'll be bringing that before the COG Board as well as MACO, our Maryland Association of Counties, to talk about a total state initiative in terms of how we can move forward, understanding that a lot of the bus shelters that we have here in the county as well as throughout the state are on state roads, and what the state's response will be when it comes to working together with local jurisdictions to make sure that we can move people quickly after a snowstorm. And that's really what our overall objective is to get people back to normal as quickly as possible. So with that, those are really the issues that I have before you now, and I'll turn it over to you guys for questions.
Planning board, have you received applications?
I think we've received 2 so far, and we might look at extending the deadline based on the number that we've received. We certainly want to make sure that we afford all people that are interested in opportunity, and we want to encourage folks that if they are interested to please apply. This is a tremendous position that I think ties into a great civic responsibility when it comes to ensuring and shaping the vision of Montgomery County and its future. So this is a position that will be taken very seriously by the council in terms of making sure that we put forth a person who is aligned with what we see as Montgomery County's vision, but also its commitment to its constituents in terms of involving them in the process. And so we continue to make sure we're using all aspects of media. So I hope that people that are watching at home will make sure that they spread the word that we are looking for planning board director, and look forward to receiving more applications.
Who have the regional governments first for a minute? I have a two-part question. First of all, I talked about maybe next up on the agenda would be addressing veterans issues. What types of things specifically would you be talking about?
Sure. Well, with our troops coming back from Afghanistan, we certainly want to make sure that workforce development is at the forefront. Our partners at Montgomery College will play a great role when it comes to making sure that some of our returning veterans that want to be prepared for entering the workforce can do so and be easily trained to go into another career. We also need to make sure that economic development opportunities are there for our veterans. You know, the great thing is that this county has stepped forward in providing preference for hiring people that are veterans, and so that's a tremendous plus. We also need to make sure that our mental health services are robust and that those programs are in place to ensure seamless transition, understanding that a lot of our veterans are combating post-traumatic stress disorder. So we want to be supportive from that standpoint as well. So it's that holistic approach in terms of just assuming that these men and women are just going to automatically weave themselves back into the fabric of our society. We need to make sure we're helping to facilitate them just as they helped us in securing America's future and presence throughout the world.
Second question, I talked about you need to make sure that the approaching transportation from a regional perspective. That's not a new issue. So I guess my question is, why hasn't that been happening more already? And if it hasn't been happening, is it more of a state issue that Governor O'Malley and Governor McAuliffe would have to do more like doing involved?
Well, actually, when I'm talking about more of a regional approach, I'm actually thinking about just intra-county. So, for example, we're looking at bus rapid transit that would go down 29. But at the same time, Howard County is also looking at some sort of either light rail or bus rapid transit. But there's never been any conversation about coordination between the two that might actually make the project a little bit more affordable if two counties were to go in together, to assume that these folks would stop at the Howard County, Montgomery County line and just get off and then hop in a car or whatever the case may be doesn't make a lot of sense. And so when it comes to these internal projects, I think that it's important for us to have that level of coordination and just understanding how we can address things differently. I think that, times are very different now than they used to be. There used to be to where individual counties made a go of all these things on their own. But with fiscal constraints the way they are, with us still coming out of the recession, it's going to be important for us to leverage every single dollar possible. And when it comes to thinking about combined projects to where we might be able to move something forward not only faster, but cheaper, is something that we need to explore. That's not to say that we definitively will be able to come up with a joint partnership when it comes to BRT between Howard County and Montgomery County, for example, but those are things we should be exploring. When you look at the Purple Line, a public-private partnership that ties Montgomery County and Prince George's together, these are things that we're going to start to see more of. It's not just about Montgomery County. This is a regional approach. And so I think that, again, it's a different mindset now. People understand that we are tied together. We saw the first success of that being with our minimum wage issue and seeing the District of Columbia, Prince George's, and Montgomery all together. And I think that now that we've seen the success of that, we need to continue to build off of that in terms of really promoting the regional partnership, something that's never been done before. And I think that's important to highlight. What you saw with the minimum wage, people commented on and reported on, had never been done before. So much to your point, I think that we are approaching a very new era for us in terms of regional tactics when it comes to addressing problems.
Do you know when the next update is on the Silver Spring Transit Center?
We are currently looking at, and I'm trying to remember the date. We already have it set for April. I had said that we wouldn't hold any Silver Spring Transit Center meetings during the winter because there was no work being done. But now that we are officially in spring, I hope Mother Nature hears us, that we will be moving forward with a lot of these updates. And so we'll continue back on our regular track of updates, letting us know where we are, when we can expect to see an opening of the Silver Spring Transit Center and any of the issues that are still before us. And I want to say that date is, it's the beginning of April, if I'm not mistaken.
Tentatively,
It's
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. I'll see you again next Monday. Oh, just one last thing. We're continuing to. I did want to give you my Annapolis update because I think that's important. We are continuing to push for school construction mechanisms in Annapolis. We appreciate the great work of our delegation, both our senators and delegates, in terms of pushing for that additional school construction money. While there have been initial votes, we continue to try and resurrect this initiative to make sure that folks really understand. And I was meeting with our president of the Board of Education earlier this morning. Folks really need to understand that when we talk about regional issues, this is a regional issue as well. When we look at what's happening with Montgomery County, we want to make sure that the continued economic development that flows in, the continued dollars that flow into Montgomery County as a result of having a strong and robust education system affect this region as a whole. And if we jeopardize that, we're actually jeopardizing all of the ancillary benefits that go along with having a strong school system. And so we continue to make that point in Annapolis. And I think that the pressure from folks understanding that that is an absolutely true statement is coming to bear. And I think and I hope that we'll actually see some positive result of our efforts in terms of additional school construction dollars.
I guess, Craig, there's been some kind of mixed messages from the delegation as far as whether they think this bill can pass this year. I know obviously you guys won it this year.
Mm-hmm.
What's your sense from talking to them that realistically, can they get it through this year, or is it going to take? And there's been some talk of, well, we won it this year, but we're going to try to set the table for next year or the year after.
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting any sense that this is actually a realistic chance of happening this year?
Well, I think that it's more along the lines of folks are reacting to what the actual initial bill that was introduced are. And so the chances of that particular bill crafted the way it is, worded the way it is, might be more difficult. But as amendments come forward that really talk about and highlight the fact that there's no monetary commitment that's coming from the state this year in this particular budget year. So from a reality, what they would be doing is committing in future years that they would establish this program that would allow us to move forward. I think that part of that messaging is getting to other delegation members, and I'm not talking about Montgomery County delegation, but other outside jurisdictions that really didn't understand what this bill really does. And I think as we, again, frame that to be the message, that actually might facilitate us getting something through in Annapolis that garners the commitment of the state in terms of saying that it will be a partner with us in terms of continuing to allow us to leverage school construction dollars while at the same time understanding that there's no financial commitment that's coming from the state this year. And I think that, again, whether it's this exact bill or a different bill that might make that message a little bit more clear to the members of the particular committees, might actually have a chance of passing. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.